Hello everyone. First, I want to say a big thank you to all of you. We managed to reach the 1,000 YouTube subscribers, so I appreciate that a lot, and I want to say thank you to all of you. Second of all, I want to give you a few updates and what's coming up soon, so you can have a better idea. I know I haven't been able to upload videos lately, but I've been busy. I've been exploring the new ControlNet for Stable Diffusion 2.1, and I've been changing a little bit my workflow because of the ControlNet that came out, as you all know, and some of the other features that are available out there. So I managed to simplify the whole process of creating stuff and doing it much more easily. So in the next videos, we'll focus much more on that. Also, I got few requests from some of you on my Discord channel regarding doing interiors and exterior shots for environment concept art. So I'm gonna do a few videos for you guys. Also, there is another thing that you've been asking me a lot lately, and that's how I do my data sets and everything like that. And I need to make a separate video just for that. Keep in mind it's a complicated process, but I'll try to simplify it, and I'm still figuring out how to simplify my process to be understandable in 30-40 minutes. So I'm still working on a script for that, but overall I got an idea. But yeah, as you know, I make my data sets all by myself, and I figured out ways how we can do that. And we'll be talking a lot about wildcards, so you better get familiar with those. So regarding the last session we did for AICC, I have some good news and bad news at the same time. The whole session was around 2 hours and 20 minutes, but sadly, the video got corrupted while I was recording it, and I've managed to save some of it, the first 30 minutes of the whole thing, but basically in the whole session we did like 4 different designs from start to finish, and I was explaining what I was doing. But luckily for you, you can see at least the first design and the whole process and how I made it. So without further ado, enjoy the video. Okay, so greetings everybody. Let me move this to the other screen so everybody can see me and we can have a better chat right now. So hello everyone. Welcome to the second small demo live session. Actually, it's not going to be a small. Still, we're going to do this for quite some time, but let's move the microphone closer. Tonight, we're going to do a few more designs together. I'll show you another software that probably not many of you ever heard of. So for everyone who uses Midjourney here, I'll show you some tips and tricks and explain to you why I've been avoiding Midjourney lately. I still use it, but not as much as I used to. And probably I'll answer some of the things that you didn't realize that are issues, especially with Midjourney. Also, we will focus on how to do a design from start to finish. And we'll be interacting live together so we can do different friendly designs and interesting things together tonight. For this live session, I'll be using Automatic 11 Lens Web UI in combination with my custom model that I did. And I'll talk to you about my custom model more in depth in a second. So let's move this into the other screen. And 1 second. So for everybody who's new to tonight's session, this is the custom model I've been working on for quite some time now. We're already at the official CiviType page is going to be available in chat. Actually, I'm going to copy it and paste it for you guys here. So this is my custom made model specifically for Stable Diffusion. It's oriented towards character and concept artists, and it works a little bit differently than all the other models out there right now. It's not perfect, but there's the catch. Actually, I'm doing this with my own art and I'm training it, and little by little it's getting to the point where I want it, because the more art I feed to the AI model later on, the better the results that I get afterwards. So how I started this, in the beginning I was doing some things for myself. I wanted to create a custom model that allows me to makes some concept art for myself just in my free time to model those things out and so on. But little by little, I started to see the potential of my custom toolkit to make life easier for people who want to do character and concept art for environments as well, or props, for example. So I started to improve upon it and release it. So in the beginning, with version 3, the designs did not look that much more interesting, and everything was much more generic as usual. But later on, with the different iterations of my model, we've gotten to the point where I was able to produce characters and other things in this kind of quality, which was key for me. And I wanted to share it with everybody. So that's how actually my toolkit started, more or less. And the problem back then with diffusion models and everything is that not many people can tell you how you do those things and how you train your models and so on. So in the beginning, there was texture inversion. The texture inversion process was the first process that came along to train custom embeddings or hypernetworks and things like that. So what this means in short terms? Well, in the beginning, you were able to create embeddings for specific objects and so on. And that was cool in the beginning, but you didn't have a lot of control into the whole process. Later on, a smarter guy came along and created Dreamboot, which was an upgraded version of texture inversion. So basically, you were able to train like a style or a face in 15-20 minutes. And later on, another person came along and took the Dreamboot and modified it even more to create water embeddings and other things, and improved upon that. So right now we're in an interesting space with AI. There are a lot of things happening constantly, and even on my YouTube channel, for everybody who's watching this on YouTube, I haven't been able to upload a video because I've been exploring with what's been possible lately with the latest tools, and that was kind of something I want to spend time and understand how I can abuse those new technologies that come out and use them in a production type of environment. So basically, this is what we're going to be focusing today. For everyone who were here on my last session, you've probably seen some of the designs we did together. So just to show you some of the things I did before we started today's session, I wanted to experiment with some new things. So in my previous video here that we did live, I was using version 4.5 of my custom build for my model that was available to everybody. And a little after the session that we did, something interesting came out. A friend of mine, Kakoi, actually made me aware of something really interesting, and that was the diffusion with offset noise. So what's that? Let me explain quickly what's the diffusion with offset noise. So when an AI wants to learn an image, how to reproduce it, it takes the image. Basically, when you want to teach something to the AI, you take an image, AI adds noise on top of that image, and later on in the process learns how to remove that noise from that image. So this is part of the training process that usually occurs when you do this. And that also created an issue. And that was when the noise gets removed, you were losing that bloom and glow and other bright spots from the image. You had like this kind of grayish, washed out type of colors, which was something that nobody even cared about, mostly in the community, because people haven't seen anything better. And then these guys, specifically Nicholas Gettenberg, made an article about this regarding how you can change the way AI learns to do this. It's a really long and it's a really long article, but for people like me, basically that meant that we had to change one setting into the training process. So instead of training the AI using this method, we had to change it to different methods. So that actually allowed me to create version 5 right now that we're going to use. And you're wondering, okay, what's the difference between version 4 and 5? Well, with the previous version, so if I show you some images with version 4.5, you can see that in all of the images and designs, even where we have like bright spots and everything, nothing's too saturated and everything looks much more, toned down, which is completely normal. Colors are beautiful, everything looks interesting, but the problem here was that it wasn't contrasty enough for me. So with version 5, just to show you how different images look when you train them, you can quickly start to see, for example, the glow around different areas on the image and how it starts to affect the whole design. So this is something really interesting I've managed to find out. And before the live session, I did a few designs just to show you what kind of things we're going to try to create today. And this was a sketch that we did in the previous session, but I'll show you different ways how we can abuse the sketch and take it to a whole new level. And here is a sort of a Yeti, kind of a frosty Yeti warrior with glowing feet and bloody mouth, for example, that I also did just to experiment before the live session today because I need to warm up. Since the last few days, I was just doing mostly trainings and how to do those things. So let me show you a few other designs that I did. With AI right now, you can create designs that look like this. You can always take those and paint them in Photoshop and so on. But basically, what is the goal of creating things like this in the first place? Well, in a production environment, last time we talked about what's the main issue in a production environment and what's the main thing that slows down artists. And we basically break it down to three sections. When you ever start a design, you have a designing phase, a creation phase, and then a polishing phase. And this is the ideal scenario where you have like 4 days to do a character design like this and to finish it. But in reality, things in any production environment I've ever been part of work way differently. And that is based on the fact that you work with other people, and certain times certain things on the design that you work need to be changed. So instead of having 1/4 of that process to be focused on the design part, sometimes this part can extend to 2/4 or almost more than that from the whole creation process. And then the artist is left with very little time to polish the design and finalize it. So this is where the stressful part comes for the artist. And with the workflow that I've been working on and the techniques I'm going to show you, we reduce the design process phase from 1/4 of that 4 days to like 40 minutes at best. So the artist can spend like 40 minutes in the morning just nailing down the base design and making more versions of those designs. And after that, he'll have the rest of those 4 days to finish his design. So you can start quickly to see how that process can be very powerful in the rights of a good concept artist, for example. And also for everybody concerned that by doing this you don't have any creative freedom, actually that's not true, and I'll show you much more like this in depth how we do it. So let's start with something basic. In the last session we've made a few examples. The first one was the silhouette of this creature, and then we made like a monster with this one. So today I'm gonna start with something similar like this. Why do I like silhouettes and what's so great about them? Well, if you do character designs specifically with silhouettes, it's easier to establish like a baseline or like the characteristics of a character. Like, does he look like a big brute or something, or is he just a small, skinny kind of a guy, and so on. So just to show you something interesting with my toolkit, let's actually switch to my stable diffusion. And first I'm gonna show you, let's do a photo of a stylized monster creature. So this is with version 5, and if I press generate, probably we'll get something. It's not gonna be exactly what we want it to, but it still can be a good base and something that we can check out. So this is one of the improvements I did with version 5. Right now, stylized objects and characters look way different. And that's pretty cool because if you're working on a stylized game or doing something for fun to make like stylized objects, it will be much more easy for everybody right now to do it. So let's log this and let's add with glowing red eyes. So now we're basically changing a little bit of the way the design works when we add those glowing red eyes, but let's explore a few more examples. So here you can really quickly start to see how that new way of training the data actually works and affects the whole design. And personally for me, yeah, you have a lot more contrast in your designs, but somehow I like that glowing effect and everything already happening into the designing phase. So in the last video, we've talked about a little bit about ControlNet and how people use it. So today we're gonna go much more in depth into the whole process. So I'll log the seed right now. We'll get completely different design, but when I use the ControlNet now, but don't worry about it. So if we switch to ControlNet, this is like a part of the interface that looks like this. And I'm just gonna drag and drop this over here. And once I enable it, I want to tell the AI, okay, this is just a scribble. So we want to read it as a scribble. And we want to take into consideration the silhouette that's done here and create an output over here. So if I press generate now, then I will try to understand what I sketched here. And it's going to try to recreate a monster based on my silhouette sketch. And this is really powerful simply because I can right now unlock my seed and start exploring different designs and ideas. And you can already see how it's filling those parts of the design and starting to create some random shapes and other things into it. And this is pretty cool. So for this example, I want to create something much more interesting. And in my case, we're going to do a photo of a stylized sea monster creature with glowing eyes. So let's see what we're gonna get. In our first attempt, you can start to see that it's already making something, but it's not exactly what we want. Let me make sure that everything I have is properly set up. Okay. Let me quickly switch to fake scribble, just make sure that which one works better. So in this scenario, we're gonna use fake scribble. This one follows exactly the shape of my design. And you can already quickly start to see how we're getting some really interesting, cool designs, right? So your system is fast. Yes, it is. So how can we improve upon this even further? So what I can do now is actually I can lock my seed. So what does this mean? Right now, I'm telling the AI if I use this prompt with these settings, and with this input, every time I press generate, I'll get exactly to this place into the latent space of an image. And that's a good thing, actually. So now I can continue designing my prompt. What does this mean? Well, I can alter different things in the prompt. For example, we can say with blue and red colors. So it will try to add blue and red colors on the design right now. It may not work perfectly, but this is kind of a cool experimentation phase. So since it's blue and red, we got this kind of a pinkish effect going on the whole design, and this is really cool. Let's change the blue with orange, for example. And this already is taking my design to a different kind of place, but I'm still experimenting what I can get with it. So this looks nice, but can we take this even further? Well, we can. If I go to Wars, war embeddings are something really cool. What I like about them is that you can create styles of different things. For example, you can create a style for Warhammer or just Samurai, or for example, my character enhancer is based on my 3D art style and everything I do. So the question is, can I take sort of my artistic input and add it to the mix of the whole designing process? So I can actually, and I'm going to add all of those together. And this is going to be very mixed up. But right now, if I press generate, there's going to be an issue. And the problem is they're all too strong right now. And what we're gonna get right now is we're gonna get a really messy result. First, the first time you press generate, when you load all these, it's taking some time to modify them, but give it a second, it will load. Sea Monster looks good already. Yes, it does, but what I'm trying to do now is I want to push it even further. So you already start to see how that input starts to mess up my initial design. And that's completely normal. Don't worry about it. So I'm going to press Control on my keyboard and just press down. So I want to lower the amount of effect that those things have to 0.1 to all of them. And now this will have a really light effect on everything. But basically it will add some sort of flavor into the whole design. And this is exactly what I'm going after. And now, once the design is locked, I can increase the different amounts of some other parts of the design. So you can already start to see how we have that kind of a glowing parts of the design and everything else. So what happens if we increase, for example, the Warhammer type of style on this just slightly? The initial group of the shape changes, it adds those kind of things going underneath it. So basically it creates something really cool. And let's say this is the first design that I like. Can I use that? Well, I actually can. The first thing I need to do is press high res. And by default, the way high res was reworked recently was that you need to swap some settings to preserve your original design. So for upscaler, I'm going to switch to ESRG Gun 4 Plus, and I'm going to lower the noise strength to 0.4. And now, since we've logged the seeds, I will get the same input when I press generate. So I want the AI to take by this initial design. And since we were just working in 768 by 768, which is a really small resolution when you think about it. But by doing this, we're going to upscale to 1536 pixels. So this should be more than enough for us to go and paint inside of Photoshop and redesign it and change things on top of it. So right now what the AI does is it cleans up all the messy parts on the initial design and it's starting to add more details. And I really like this process specifically here because this way I can have really clean shapes. So later if I go and start designing on top of this, I can have much more control and everything I want on top of it. So right now we're going to do a few versions. I'm going to upload them to a new mirror board that I made for this session. After this session, I'll update this mirror board, and for everybody asking me where's the previous mirror board from the last session, I still haven't had time to fix it. So don't worry guys, we'll get there. I'll provide links and update all the links on the YouTube video as well, so they reflect this. So we're almost done with the design. It's almost upscaled. And keep in mind, we're just designing things right now. We're exploring different ideas and funny ways we can come up with really cool things that later on we can combine and mix and remix and do really interesting things with them. And I really like the fact that it adds the environment behind it because it sets like a mood for the whole creature and everything. It makes it much more readable in what kind of environment and setting it is. So if I open this in a new tab, you can already see that we have pretty decent looking design. And keep in mind, Midjourney does images up to 124 by 124, which is not bad, but it's not the best resolution that you can use. But since many of you have been asking me regarding my specific workflow, how I do things, I'm going to copy this here in the mirror board and I'm going to show you what's even greater than this. So we have this design, but it looks nice, but can we take it even further? Well, actually we can. If I send this to in Paint It's going to copy all my settings the way they are, and it will keep my seed. ControlNet is going to be disabled, but that's completely fine. We don't need it for the type of work we're going to do here. So right now, let's say I want to modify some part of the design, or I want to enhance them additionally. How can I do that? Can I cut like a piece of the image and use AI to upscale it even more, like add more detail to it? And the answer is yes, actually, we can. And what's even cool about this is that I don't need to cut this in here and send it to Photoshop and then send it back to enhance it and then bring it back and paint everything on top of it so it can blend. I can actually just paint the area I want to enhance. For example, let's do this head of this part of the creature. Let's actually do the whole tentacle. I need to select only masked. And here I'm going to set my resolution to 768 by 768. And we're going to lower the noise. Lower noise means that the AI will read what's in the image and is going to add just a little noise. So when it starts to remove it, it will start adding more shapes to my design. So let's start with 0.45 for now, just for test. So this resolution is 768 by 768. It's going to cut a square around my painted area like this, and it's going to generate inside of there at this resolution. And since my image is 1536, it's going to upscale this, add details, and then scale it back. So it's going to sort of oversample it in a way, which is also cool because I will get much more sharper results in my initial design. And here we can start to see how far we can take this design right now and how much detail we get. And keep in mind, we're just exploring and enhancing ideas, but what happens if we enter like a larger resolution? How much more clearer that will be? Well, as you can already start to see, we're getting some really cool things happening on the design, like small ornaments and specific things. We see the teeth and the glowing outgoing parts of the design. So this is already starting to look really cool. And we can see the small teeth of the design as well. So I'm just gonna send this back to InPaint. And now I will repeat the same thing on the other side. So AI is really powerful. If you done or painted something, let's say in like an initial design inside of Photoshop, or you're working on a specific character, or you want to explore ideas, you can first use it to explore ideas. And also you can use it to refine shapes in initial designs that you've done previously. So AI can be really powerful too in the enhancing process for this. Let's try again. And what's even cooler is that actually I need to unlock my seed. So once I unlock the seed, right now I'm getting the same results always because I've used the same lock seed. But what's the great magic of this is I can unlock this, and basically, depending on how much noise I have, it's going to redesign this part of the thingy. Since the noise I have is low, it's gonna preserve most of the shapes, but it's still going to introduce some sort of new forms and try to figure out how those things look differently on the other parts of the design. And you can already start to see how this even looks better than it initially did. So what I can do now is I can send this to InPaint again. And let's try and redo the face of this bug, because it's really cool and it's quite detailed, but I want it to be even more detailed. So let's try with 0.45 noise, see how this works. And what it's doing now is it reads my shapes, it understands what's where, and starts to add even more things like the teeth and everything else, like from this tentacle or something else. So it added all those samurai kind of things happening underneath the teeth because we have that samurai war embedding. But since it's with low mount, it's introducing this to the whole design without affecting too much the initial design that I'm going for, which is the sea monster creature. So if we send this back, now I can redo the other part of the body. And I'll add even more details over here using the same process. But for example, since we're cutting this piece of the image, it's trying to add glowing red eyes as here as well, which in my scenario, that may work for me, because if you look, we had some sort of a glow and now it's much more understandable what's there. And this is really cool actually. So can I take this even further actually? And yeah, we can. I'll send this to extras first, and we're going to go to scale, and I can scale this to 4K, but since this is an overkill, we don't need to. I'm gonna just scale it to 2K, which is more than enough for many initial designs. And I'm going to use 4 ESGAN plus 4 for upscaler. I'm just gonna drag the slider here, even if we don't have anything there. And now when we generate this, it's going to take this image and use this upscaler to make everything a little bit more sharper, to make my initial design like way bigger than it is right now. So right now we went from 2K, from 1536 image to 248 pixels image. So can we actually abuse this and try to refine it even more? And the answer is yes. What I can do is send back again this to image, and now in many cases the sliders go up to 248 to 248, which is completely fine. Depending on what GPU we have, this may take a lot of time, but since we just want to polish this thing quite slightly, I'm going to go with a noise value of 0.2. This is going to equalize my entire design. So if I press generate now, sadly, this is where the video cuts out because it got corrupted, but don't worry, anything I showed to people, I'll show it to you as well. So also, one more thing I was curious about, guys, are you interested in doing live videos here on YouTube? I know a lot of people have been asking me, do I plan to do it, but I'm curious what my audience here thinks, and I'll be more than happy. I know there's a difference between the time zones and many people live in different places, but what's great about this is that whoever comes live on the stream can interact with me and we can do some cool designs together while I'm explaining my processes and how I do everything. So if you're interested, let me know down in the comments. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.